All right, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining today. My name is Bo. I'm here with Acelab. We are helping out with hosting today's event. It's presented by Sheffield Metals, and we're going to be talking about metal cladding and roofing, sustainability. We're really excited to bring this to you, and it is an AIA-approved course. So we did ask for AIA numbers upon registration. I will also send over a form in the chat momentarily so that if you're worried that you didn't submit your AIA number when you signed up, you can fill that out and submit it to us there. We're going to start off with just a quick little introduction from my colleague, Helen. Helen is the Director of Architectural Experience at Acelab. She's going to give you a quick little tour of Acelab, show you how to get in touch with Sheffield Metals. So if you have any questions that come up after today's event, you can head on over to Acelab and get in touch with their team directly there. And then after that, we'll go ahead and get started with the CEU approved portion of today's presentation. All right, Helen, whenever you're ready, feel free to take it over. And Anne, if you wouldn't mind stopping your screen share for a moment so that Helen can give a quick tour, that would be awesome.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Bo. All right, let's see if this works today. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, we're good.
Awesome. Yay. Love it when things work, don't we all? Hi, everyone. I'm Helen. As Bo mentioned, I'm the Director of Architect Experience here. Essentially, that means that I'm here to make sure you all have a great experience navigating the platform. So today I'm going to take you through a quick little search through I'm going to mix it up. I'm going to go with a new category we just launched, and then I'm going to talk about how to get in touch with folks and show you a few other things here. So here I'm in decking and pavers. I'm going to start off with selecting a loading profile. So for this, I'm going to go with this people only light loading. Here you're going to select which project you're working on. I'm going to go with general research for today. All of these things I'm just flipping through quickly, but you can see we had a lot of search results. We're already down to 435. So we're really looking at this as a way to match make kind of what your performance needs are with the products that exist out there. Jumping to the next question here. I am just flying by. Hopefully in the chat, that's not a comment about, oh, good. The screen share not working. Happened to me last week. You're fine. So here you go. We're at now down to 168 search results. I love this new quiz because we have all of these amazing certifications that you can search for, which I know can be quite difficult to find on your own. So I'm going to go with just FSC certified today and jump into the next question. So you can see we're really like winnowing that results down. Now we only have 3 search results. I do like to pause here because something that's available for y'all is the live chat. So let's say I look at these 3 products and I'm curious to know more. Maybe I go through this search. I still have, 350 options. We have a bunch of experts on staff and you can reach them by using this Get Pro recommendations, or you can also select the live chat and let us know a little bit more about what you're looking for and we can help you. So I'm going to go ahead, skip and show results really quickly, just so y'all can see what this would look like at the end. Here I've got 3 products by 2 manufacturers. I can save them and compare them into a project folder. But I'm going to jump back to those expert recommendations. These are some case studies that we've helped with recently. So again, these are firms that just need a little help. They might be moving into a new climate zone, or we have these folks actually featured in this case study here. A firm in the Northeast needed to meet some regional materials requirements, and Sheffield is one of the manufacturers that was featured in this because they are close by. So when you reach out to us, we'll create a little comparison for you, offer some additional comments as well. I know it's hard to see. There we go. You can see the information about the facility. So depending on what you're looking for, we'll put this together for you. And as I just scroll through, if you haven't done a comparison in Acelab yet, you get to see all this great performance data, certifications, finishes across all the products lined up. Now, let's talk about how to get in touch with Sheffield after this. So back here in our Acelab home, we can always type in any manufacturer's name. Oops, you can see I just did that with them. Make sure you select brands. It's similar to kind of an Amazon search there. And here you'll be able to see all of their products that they have. You can also contact the reps directly. So when you hit that contact button, you'll create a little conversation up here. So it's a great way to get in touch with these folks and get a little extra information, whether that's pricing or anything like that. So I will pass it on back to you. And thank you all so much for your time. And if y'all want to do a quick little tour talking about how we can make this work for your firm in terms of projects, things like that, just let us know. All right, thank you.
Thanks so much, Helen. All right. So now without further ado, I'd love to pass it on over to Anne to get started with today's CEU approved course. Anne had a little bit of issues with the video today, so she's going to be video off. But we also have Jeff here. He is going to be helping out with answering some questions. So please feel free to submit any questions to the Q&A throughout today's presentation. We'll be keeping our eye on those in case anything seems urgent. And if we don't get to your question during the live event, we'll be able to follow up with you after today's event. All right, those are all the housekeeping items for me. Thank you again to everyone who joined. And Anne, whenever you're ready, feel free to take it away.
And you can just verifying you can see my screen.
Yep, we're all good.
It is moving. All right. So sorry for the video technical on my end, but thank you, Bo, for the introduction, and to Acelab for hosting the webinar for us. I appreciate everyone joining us today for the Yes You Can Design for Sustainability, Energy Efficiency, and Carbon Footprint Reduction with Metal Roof and Wall Systems. That's a really nice long title to get us started. So as Bo said, I am Ann Roper. I'm an architectural project manager for Sheffield Metals. I've been a product rep for over 30 years, and I joined Sheffield just shy of a year ago. My counterpart, Lori Reynolds Morrow, sorry couldn't be with us today, but together she and I work to educate and provide specification support for the architectural community, people such as yourselves. I'm based out of sunny and warm Melbourne, Florida, and Lori is based out of Vermont, where it's cloudy and about 32 degrees. So I don't know if we have any Vermont people in the audience, but I'll take my sunshine. And as Bo mentioned, also on the call is Jeff. Jeff is our technical director. He's been in the roofing industry for close to 20 years. He's on the Council of Chairs and the Executive Committee for the MCA, which is the Metal Construction Association. And as Bo said, he'll be available to assist in answering questions throughout the presentation and at the end. So we will move on here. So before we get into the AIA portion, I like to do this ahead, just give you a little background on Sheffield Metals. I think it's important to understand our go-to-market position as it really kind of plays into the webinar topics we talk about today. So Sheffield Metals is a national distributor of flat stock and coil. So we like to fondly say at Sheffield that, well, we don't actually make anything. We source our metal, mostly steel and aluminum. We have the materials coated, painted, and then we sell that finished product to metal roofing fabricators and installers. And as you can see on this screen, we have 6 distribution locations strategically located throughout the US. And we have a 7th location coming soon to the Chicagoland area. We do work, so that go-to-market is basically we work closely with a national group of independent metal fabricators. And here, if you can see me, I'm doing a little air quotes. We have a little in here as our sister company, New Tech Machinery. They are a manufacturer of portable, or what we like to call on-site roll forming machines and their accessories. So a lot of that national group of independent fabricators are working with the New Tech portable roll forming machines. So that's our little in there. But what's really great is that not only do we have metal and we have the machines for forming the metal, for forming roof and wall panels, but we have our own line of roof and panel profiles. So this is what's important to you, the audience today, both commercial and residential projects. We promote our line of engineered and non-engineered panel profiles. You can see just a few of them here. And if you go on the Acelab site or our website, you can see a lot more. Seam heights ranging from 1 inch, 1.5 inches, 1 3/4, 2 inch, some mechanical, some the snap lock where they snap together. We also have wall panels, one we call the wave. Yes, it's missing the E on the end, and a board and batten, which is very popular these days, and certainly flush wall panels for walls and for soffits. So as for those profiles and what's important to you and hopefully to your customer is the testing that goes on behind these products. So what's up on the slide now is a quick comparison. It's a chart for just some of the panels that we have kind of going across the top. And you'll see, just like a factory formed product, our profiles can meet and exceed industry testing standards. So these especially come into play on the commercial projects, seeking the weather tight warranties, which we can provide. All right. So now we'll pop into the AIA portion of the presentation. I'm sure you guys are familiar with this slide. And our copyright, certainly, we're happy to provide, any additional information that you might need following the webinar. All right, so our summary. The focus of the presentation today is going to really kind of be how metal roof and walls coated with high quality special paints, coatings, and the on-site roll forming will meet and exceed the requirements for sustainability, energy efficiency, and carbon footprint reduction. So my colleague Lori, who is not here today, who is also a lead green associate, she loves the quote that's here at the top of the slide. To be sustainable means creating places that are environmentally responsible, healthful, just, equitable, and profitable. Quote from LEAD. I think for years now as a society, we really have worked very hard to create sustainable projects, right? We use sustainable materials. We're highly conscious of improving the spaces that we work and live in, right? This has been kind of the norm for us for quite a while now. So the terms life cycle and responsibility and durability, dare I say that they might be overly common these days. We kind of take it for granted something's recyclable or it has a long life cycle, but bear with me as we work through this. It's not going to be typical, but hopefully we're going to be able to tie these elements maybe in a new way of thinking about metal roofing in that sustainability arena. All right, kind of the objective number 2 here is the energy efficiency and metal panels. So we're showing the cool roof coatings and how they can reduce the energy usage impact. I previously used to work for an insulation company, and we use the number. So there's that 40% of all energy, US energy consumption comes from our commercial buildings. And working for that insulation company, we used that same number, that 40% in one of the slides in one of our presentations. And that was probably 10 years ago. So in a couple of my recent lunch and learns, I've kind of thrown that question out to my architects that has anybody come to you with a different number? Are we seeing 35% of all, commercial buildings are responsible for 35% or 37%? Do we see that number dipping? And it doesn't seem to have moved. I don't think we've changed that number. So we have to be mindful and continue to make the right choices in the materials to push that, that commercial energy usage number down. That's kind of, what our goal is. And then finally, we're going to talk about the benefits of portable roll forming and its impact on the carbon footprint. And this is probably going to be the most, hopefully, enlightening part of the presentation, and how maybe you can rethink about how your specifications address, again, my air quotes, if you can see me, the manufacturing of your roof and wall panels. Okay. So in the next few slides, we're going to focus on sustainability. There's that common word again. The sustainability aspects that we're all very familiar with, specifically the base metals that are used in most metal roofing applications. We're going to talk about steel and aluminum. They're both highly recycled and recyclable. But where do those base metals come from? How did they get made? What are those people doing to meet sustainability requirements? I'm also going to show a cost analysis between 2 decorative roofing materials and what the owner can expect 60 years down the road. And then lastly, in this section, the industry associations that support metal and where you can find the information such as EPDs for your specifications. All right, so steel and aluminum are the 2 biggest base materials used in the metal roofing industry. There's obviously others, zinc, copper, stainless steel. They all have their benefits, but they typically include a premium price. So we're going to kind of just focus on the steel and aluminum as the 2 most common base metals that are used. So just as you collectively as designers and architects and specifiers, just as you choose the materials that for your products, that you choose them hopefully with discretion, your metal roofing suppliers should also be doing the same. And it's not unrealistic for you to check where the products that you are specifying are being supplied from. So as you can kind of see here, there's several steel makers in the US, and procuring these metals stateside here in the US ensure higher quality due to the testing standards that are with us, and hopefully shorter lead times. So part of what makes US Steel kind of a better choice, and I say US Steel not as a company, but as a generalization for where you can purchase steel. In addition to those standards, they're using this new technology, and more than 70% of these manufacturers are utilizing what's called EAF, which is this electric arc furnace technology. So these furnaces have lower emissions, which is really so very critical to our environmental well-being, right? We talk about emissions all the time. And many of these use the scrap or the ferrous metals as their initial source, rather than kind of dirty coal and iron ore that they used to use. So, you know, all those things you look for in a sustainable product, we as a supplier to you, to products that you use, are also looking for those same things in the suppliers that we use as a provider of a steel as a base metal. And like many companies, steel producers are looking and currently utilizing renewable energy sources, you know, such as solar, to assist in the energy requirements that they have for their facilities. So again, you're looking to specify, you know, sustainable products. We as a supplier are looking for companies who are doing sustainable things as well. Steel, though, too, is taking on the lead on discovering new technologies such as carbon capture and storage, or CCS. And since I am not a scientist, I cannot get into great detail on this technology, but suffice it to say, you know, they're moving forward, and we have a little graphic here. And just to quickly run through this, basically the process is taking the CO2 emissions that are going out into the air, they're capturing those, they inject them into rock formations. And it's showing here that they inject them into depleted gas and oil reservoirs, or possibly even concrete. They dissolve into water, they trap the droplets, it creates some kind of reaction down there, and then they're recovering CO2 enhanced oil, which is absolutely amazing, very revolutionary. But it gives you an idea how forward thinking some of these companies are. And sometimes the products you're choosing, maybe you don't go beyond, you know, where that's coming from. And, you know, these companies are thinking ahead. We should be, and everything that we do can, you know, every little bit helps, right? So cool stuff going on out there. Moving on to our other base metal, aluminum. Not as many upstream or original sourcing places for the aluminum, but it's highly recyclable. And depending upon the use, you know, are we making a roofing panel? Are we doing a car bumper? Are we making aluminum foil? It can be sourced secondarily, which is typically from, as it says here, the scrap or recycled, or it can be downstream material that uses both primary and secondary sources. A really great thing about aluminum too, regardless of where it's sourced, it's highly durable. It's great for coastal applications. Little side note there, but the picture kind of helps point that out. And it can be recycled again and again and again without ever degrading its inherent value, which is really key. A couple of other tidbits about aluminum. Most of the material that's in use today has already been recycled. Remember our kind of secondary and our downstream sources, that product's already been used for something else and has been recycled. And 75% of the aluminum produced that has been produced is still in use today. So talk about a super sustainable, recyclable product. Aluminum is going to be your material. So not only is recyclability a benefit of aluminum, but its strength to weight ratio makes it relevant for a structural material. It weighs 65% less than steel. You can bend it. It lends itself to these cool applications, such as this house that was built on the west coast of Florida. And I mentioned earlier, it's great to be used coastally. Kind of showing here too, the weight benefits. So if weight is of an issue, obviously aluminum is going to come in less. I know here in Florida, we use a lot of clay or concrete tiles, and they construct a new house, and then the tiles they throw up on the roof in pallets, and then they have to sit there for about a month because the house has to absorb the weight of the concrete. So if you're looking for a lightweight material, aluminum is going to be the choice. So the aluminum industry, similar to steel, that is kind of taking the lead on these, the carbon capture, some of these cool new technologies. I've highlighted the quote here from the Aluminum Association that every day our members pursue new approaches. So they're always trying to continue to find new and innovative ways to be sustainable. So be assured that when you choose metal roofing, that the materials that you're specifying are being sourced from reliable and sustainable sources. All right, so the second of the three sustainable components that we're discussing in the webinar is durability. Not a lot to say here, the definition stated on the slide. But interestingly enough, we've added the picture here on the left, the little black and white picture of the pointy thing. Believe it or not, that's the cap of the Washington Monument. It was installed in 1884. So talk about a testament to the durability of the material. Not to offend anyone, but dare I say that we're kind of a throwaway society. Something breaks, oh, we can get a new one, and we often hear the phrase that, things aren't built the way they used to be. We talk about cars that way. So choosing durable materials becomes pertinent to the projects so that we can have the longevity, durability, that's desired and needed to have these be, have the longevity in these projects. So of course we have to talk about service life, life analysis, life cycle, all those great words, and a great resource for all things metal and associated industry. So I talk about metal, but it could be underlayments, it could be paint, is the metalconstruction.org. So MCA, we mentioned this earlier. The MCA, again, promotes metal. They felt like metal was a great product, but it wasn't getting enough attention. That designers and architects and specifiers such as yourselves needed to be aware of what the benefits of metal and what they can do. So they basically conducted field tests. This is the white paper. It's on their website. They took inspections of 12 low slope galvalume, which is steel, coated steel, roofs aged 30 to 36, typical life range of those that had been in the field that long, from a variety of environments. So they took some from Vermont, where it's cold and dry. They took some from, Arizona, where it's hot and dry, hot and humid down here in Florida. They took them from 12 different areas around the US. And the study, as I mentioned, can be found on the MCA website. But it states basically that at the time of the report, which was not that long ago, I wish I knew the date, 2014, I think, that 25-year warranties, so for metal roofing, for this type of roofing, truly at that time was underestimating the service life of the metal. And then it goes on to say, and you can see the quote here, whoops, oh, at the top of the page, yeah. The expected service life of this type of roof constructed today and using best practices, and of course we have to say using best practices, because if it's not installed properly and you're not using the right materials, then it's not going to last. But using best practices can last in excess of 60 years. So they're promoting the fact that the life cycle of the metal roof, and then when you're done with it, you can always recycle it. So let's remember the cap on the Washington Monument, still in use today. So we're showing a little life cycle cost analysis here, some small numbers, but basically square footage, single story, so forth and so on. But we're showing one 60-year metal roof versus 3 20-year shingle roofs. Keep in mind, that there's other decorative roofing materials that we could compare to, clay tile, slate, wood shingles, things like that. But I think you'd probably agree that these two materials, the metal and the asphalt shingles are probably the two most common types that you're going to see. So kind of looking at that, pricing low end to high end, but overall, we've laid out the cost, and obviously the asphalt shingles are going to come in a lot less expensive. But really, are they the most sustainable choice? Well, we've already talked about the recyclability of the metals, right? Durability, well, metal wins that one. So we're left playing that dollar game. And if you have an owner concerned with an ROI, and as we move into the energy efficiency conversation in the next few slides, well, maybe they want to start thinking about choosing metal. Because then too, let's say we have to tear off that shingle, the asphalt shingle roof, the metal roof's going to stay for another 40 years, right? We've got our first round of tear-offs, and where does all that material go? It goes right into the landfill. And we're going to talk about waste a little bit later. I'm going to take a little sidebar here too, because I usually mention it when I do a lunch and learn presentation to a firm, and kind of pull up everybody's favorite topic of insurance. And I tell people not to hate me. My husband is in insurance, but so it's kind of foremost in mind, but it comes into play here, especially here in Florida. The insurance companies are requiring re-roofs of shingles in order to maintain or get insurance. And I'm not sure if that's happening someplace else. And I mention this because I did a lunch and learn, and the question came up, well, what about metal roofs? And so I did some digging, and that's not happening. If you have a metal roof, you're not asking to have it replaced. Case in point, my father-in-law went to sell a house. He was 12 years into a 20-year shingle, and the people buying the house weren't allowed to purchase it, or they couldn't get insurance until the roof was replaced. Now, again, it's 12 years into a 20-year roof. We're in Florida, a lot of sun. I get it, you know, that's possible, but it is happening around. Now, I also had another neighbor, sharing a little personal information here, who had an exposed fastener metal roof. So she had the metal roof, but in order to renew her insurance policy, the insurance company made her change all the fasteners. So at the end of the day, it's a little promo overall for standing seam metal roof with concealed fasteners. So thank you for allowing me my sidebar, but I think it's a reality of what's happening out there with roofing materials. So something to take into consideration when you make your selections. So talking about where to get our documents, EPDs, things like that, we mentioned the MCA, and they're kind of a holding house for all of these important documents. As an industry-wide EPD, most of your metal products are going to have an industry-wide. Other companies, you know, have product specific and may house them on their own websites. But again, the Metal Construction Association is going to be a great resource for these type of documents. In addition to those type of documents, you can also see some of the metal companies are represented. So if you go to the metalconstruction.org under the companies, it's a great kind of one-stop shop along with Acelab to find some of the companies that possibly you're trying to look for and compare. So Barrage, PacClad, ATAS, obviously Sheffield Metals is on there. You're gonna be able to link then to the websites. In addition to that are the associated products. So we see PPG here, Sherwin-Williams. Right next to that on the left is Shark Skin, which is an underlayment. So you kind of get all the associated roofing products and accessories all kind of in one place. And then last, we talk about recyclability under the sustainability category. And we've touched on this over and over again, but just to push the importance of the sustainability conversation with the two base metals, steel being the most recycled material on the planet, hands down, and aluminum having the ability to be recyclable over and over without degrading its inherent value. All right, we move on to kind of our second category in the energy efficiency discussion. Our focus goes from the base metals to the coatings that we put on those base metals, the pigments that are in the PVDF. Now the PVDF is polyvinylidene fluoride, nice big word for you. They are the coatings that are typically seen on a standing seam metal roof, quality standing seam metal roof. And the pigments in there are solar reflective, which help to reduce the heat gain. They reduce the cooling costs, and hopefully dropping that number, that 40% that we're taking to, energy to run our commercial buildings, hopefully dropping that number and increasing energy efficiency overall. So achieving energy efficiency is achieved by utilizing the metal roof with the cool roof colors. And these cool roof covers have what we refer to as high thermal emittance and high solar reflectance. So assisting the paints, so paints help, but also helping reduce some of that energy is to keep the roof cool by natural ventilation points at the eaves, ridges of your metal roof. All right, we're going to have a little discussion on paint. If you've ever had a paint presentation, then you're aware that the pigment is what gives it its color. And in this case, it also is what kind of carries those solar reflective particles. It also hides the substrate and then subsequently the primer that's on top of that. The resin is what binds those color particles together. So the pigment's usually kind of a powder. The resin's kind of a gluey mixture. You mix the two and you get kind of this sticky goo. But the resin is also what provides special characteristics, I guess you could say, of specific coatings, such as you might get a can of paint and it says it's quick drying or it's self-leveling. So when it has those characteristics, the resin is what brings those into play. In this case, the resin for exterior architectural products brings superior weather resistance and the durability. So we're back into that durability conversation. We want our coatings to be extremely durable. And last but not least, in this little tripod of ingredients is the solvent. That's the liquid that carries the pigment and the resin. So it allows it to move, to be painted on or sprayed on, or in this case, rolled through and dipped. Keep in mind that once it goes through that curing process, the solvent evaporates off, and what's left is this hardened finish on our base metals. These two, as I mentioned, are industrial coatings. These are not house paint. These coatings carry 20 to 50-year paint warranties, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, which is just as phenomenal. All right, in addition to weather resistance and durability, these coatings provide outstanding color retention and UV resistance. So after all, we don't want to put, a short-term paint that's only going to last 5 years on our determined 60-year metal roof, right? And additionally, we want the coating to stay on. We don't want it to crack or peel or flake. The adhesion matters, right? So I refer back to that cool roof, that curved roof that was on the coast. When we bend and crimp and snip our metal materials, we want good film integrity. We don't want anything splitting or cracking when we're working with the materials. So we're gonna have a little science lesson here, a little refresher, a couple of definitions as sourced from the MCA Roofing Installation Manual on solar reflectance. And basically, that's the energy reflected back off from the roofing product. The thermal emittance is more about heat that's absorbed, but then is radiated back off the roof into the surrounding. And the reason we talk about this is because we see these specified and required in some specifications. So both of these are represented in numbers less than 1. So for example, the number 1 represents total reflectance. So a white roof might have a solar reflectance of 0.67, where a matte black roof might be 0.25. We have a little graphic showing here, so how the orange arrows shows the sun beating down on the roof and the solar energy that's being reflected back up off the roof, which is what we want, right? The yellow arrows are conveying that the surface ability to emit the heat back off the roof away from that surface. Just another little note, excuse me. Up in the right-hand corner, the CRRC, please note Cool Roof Rating Council. And why this is important And I actually saw a specification this morning that was still calling out Energy Star. Remember the Energy Star program? They rated like dishwashers and refrigerators as how their energy consumption was. Energy Star used to hold all the data for the roofing, so all the SRI numbers and the requirements, Title 24, so forth and so on. All of that data has now been moved and it's housed in the Cool Roof Rating Council. You'll see at the bottom of the slide is coolroofs.org, and you'll find all the information about SRI on those pages, and I'm going to show you here in a couple of slides. So the typical data that we see required for specifications is an SRI, which is your solar reflectance index. And it's calculated with a formula using both the SR, the solar reflectance, and the TE, the thermal emissivity. That's such a fun word to trip over. But it's also can be calculated or is calculated differently for just low sloped roofs with a pitch lower than 212 or steep sloped roofs. It would go to figure that a low sloped roof would have more sun beating down on it, so the calculations are going to be different. And from that Cool Roof website, I pulled this. It happens to be the Denver Green Building Ordinance. I've been spending a little bit of time in Denver. So the requirements, just to kind of show you the low slope and the steep slope, which we talked about, this particular one calls out clay or concrete roof tile. They have, nothing required here, or maybe somebody else does. They do, it just varies from state to state, requirement to requirement, but often reference some kind of an initial SRI or possibly aged or combinations of both. So here I've gone to CRRC, you see up there in the top left, rated roof products. And of course, I'm going to pull up Sheffield Metals. The color blue, it says Cool R Slate Blue, basic color blue. Up in the yellow, it's showing you the solar reflectance numbers, initial and 3-year, the thermal emittance, initial and 3-year, and the SRI value, the initial and the 3-year. And again, depending upon where you are, what part of the country, what the requirement will be, whether it be one, the other, combinations of both. Keep in mind that you can get the information here, but I find that like we do, most manufacturers have this information with their color samples. And we mentioned a little bit earlier, circling back to the ventilation, that it's key in meeting design specifications throughout the roof system, right? The exchange of the air at the eaves, ridges, and under the panel help to sustain the life of the roof. All right, and now we're going to move into our last section. Have about 10 slides left, so hanging in there, appreciate it. We're going to talk about the sustainable strategy of on-site fabrication and how it contributes toward the reduction of the project's total carbon footprint reduction. So we know that some of the major contributors to a project's carbon footprint, waste, we talked about that, throwing things in the landfill, transportation, getting the products where we need them, and just even the energy to manufacture the products in more of a factory setting, right? So what are some of the ways that we can reduce the carbon footprint? So what ways, by choosing a standing seam metal roof fabricated on site, how can that help reduce the carbon footprint of your next project? Well, we're going to talk about that. We've talked about how sustainable and recyclable steel and aluminum are, right? That's addressed here on this slide. They're the two base products, most recycled material and the recyclability over and over again. We want to try to reduce as much waste as possible. One potential with a metal roof is being able to re-roof over a current asphalt roof. That's a possibility, eliminating the tear off and the waste from that. Cut off pieces, mismeasurements, changes on the job site, maybe not maximizing the metal coil size, all contributors to waste. Whatever we can not waste or we can reduce and recycle, we're going to be better off. using less energy, less power to manufacture. So on the left, we show kind of an image of a factory. And if we think really about what it takes to run a factory, you know, you've got the lights, you've got the water, you've got, you know, all of the costs associated with that. Portable roll former, none of that. Transportation. So again, if we talk about prefabricated roof panels being shipped to the job site, and again, we might have some that are in that lovely lead range, but the portable roll former, they're everywhere and they just kind of roll up to your job site. So a lot less transportation. And we're going to talk about this starting now. So I think, you know, you kind of get an idea where this is going. There's a couple of different types of roll formers, basically one that sits in a factory and produces pre-manufactured panels that are then crated and shipped to the job site. Or you have portable roll formers, as I said, that roll up to your job site wherever you need it, whenever you need it. So if you haven't seen a portable roll former, it operates much like a fixed in place machine. The coils fed in the top of the machine through the forming dies, which bend the panel to the profile that you've specified. The dies can kind of be unique to each machine, or some can be changed out to accommodate different profiles. The computer then tells it how many pieces to make and what length, and you cut it and you're good to go. So I thought I'd just do a slide that shows you all the benefits of a portable roll former. And then we're going to just briefly touch on each one of these. Promise it won't take as long as the list looks like. So on-site storage eliminated. We all know that a job site can not only be chaotic, but it also can be short on storage space. And if we think about the crates, you know, if you've got, let's just say that you've got a 40-foot panel, it's been trucked in, it's in a heavy crate, they're all standing on edge of these pre-manufactured panels. Where do we put them all? All right, they're sitting around the job site. You have more control of your project with a portable roll former. So let's keep in mind those crates we just talked about that are sitting there in storage. Those crates are sitting around holding your panels, waiting for the roofing contractor to be ready. Well, let's imagine a forklift and it backs into one of those crates, damaging one or two of the crates, maybe more than one panel. Then there's the call to the factory, more lead time, more trucking, more shipping. Let's have your contractor take back control of the project by having the coils for the project delivered when needed, typically within days. We're looking at days for lead times. The roll former can arrive when needed. No panels to store means no damage to worry about. And even if that panel does get damaged, the material and the fabricator are right there. You damage a panel, you make a new one. Again, that's waste, but we try not to do that. But nonetheless, damaging one panel, a hammer gets dropped on it versus a forklift backing into some other ones, much easier to handle. Changes to measurements on the job site. You've got, you know, changes, something had to change, no problem. You field measure, and then in minutes, you can have a new panel made to the length that you need. And then speaking of the length, panel length is a really key benefit of portable roll forming, not only from installation, but from a design standpoint. I read many specs that call for no seam ridge to eave, right? We want it to look clean. We don't want to have seams. Small projects, not usually a problem, but factory form panels, let's think about it, can only be the length of a semi. And that's what, 50, 53 feet? I don't even know for sure, but approximately. On-site fabricated panels can pretty much reach any length that's manageable. Let's put it that way. So you don't have to design in seams. You don't have to worry about a seam popping up in the middle of a panel run. You don't have to worry about protrusions popping up in the middle of a potential seam and where that's going to be, because you have to design around those things. How nice would it be just to say I need a 100-foot panel from ridge to eave, and you get a 100-foot panel and it looks great, right? So these things can all not only speed up installation, but can reduce costs, and it does reduce your time in designing as well. So the portable roll formers, well, you know what? They're portable and they can move anywhere they're needed, right? Even on top of the roof. They can be positioned also so that the panels, kind of the two bottom pictures show, they angle the machine so that the panels can kind of be quote unquote sent up into the roof. This positioning, either one, allows for less handling of the panels. So that means decreased potential for damage. Let's think about the factory panels again for a moment. They come off the line, they get handled to get crated, they get loaded, they loaded their travel time, they get unloaded, they potentially sit in the job yard, they get moved, they get uncrated, and then they finally get installed. The number of opportunities for potential damage to that panel before it even hits the roof is so much greater using factory form panels. Couple of slides left. Hang in there, people. All right. So we know that transportation is a huge cost. It doesn't matter what we're shipping. Transportation is a huge cost. Looking at the slide, there's a lot of words there, but we also know trucks contribute to CO2 emissions. Here we say to the tune of 0.46 kilograms per mile with a full truck, getting 6 miles per gallon, blah, 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 blah. Anybody feel like you're listening to a high school algebra problem? The point is, there's a way to calculate the truck's carbon footprint. Websites on the bottom if you're interested. But more important is that one semi-truck carrying prefabricated panels will max out at 100 roofing squares, which is about 100 square feet. A full load of coil, so we've got a truck with just the coils that you see there on the picture, and any flat stock needed, will produce more than 400 squares of panels on site. So they can ship on one truck more material to make more panels than can be shipped on 4 trucks of prefabricated panels. So 1 truckload of material to 4 truckloads of prefabricated material. Let's think about that and the impact on the carbon footprint there. So the strategy of portable roll forming can provide many benefits. Production time, energy, less time, less energy, shipping time and cost. There is no shipping, right? Really. Less risk for damage due to handling and the shipping, and just overall reducing the carbon footprint of that project. I'd like to encourage each one of you, take a look at your Division 7 roofing specifications. I'd really be honored if you would include Sheffield Metals in your options. Take a look at the wording too. I see this in specifications. If the specification calls out for factory formed, I got my little air quotes going again, factory formed only. I hope today's presentation will make you more comfortable with the on-site roll forming process and the benefits it has to offer. I can pretty much guarantee that if I walked up to you with a factory formed panel and a portable roll form panel, you would not be able to tell the difference. This is not cheap workmanship. This is quality workmanship coming off these machines. Keep in mind, just to reiterate, the Cool Roof Rating Council for a lot of your SRI and thermal emittance numbers, and the MCA website as a resource as well. And of course, as well as Acelab site through which you can reach us at Sheffield Metals. And thank you all for being part of this webinar. And I think now we can have a few minutes to open it up for questions. Bo, I'll turn it over to you.
Right. Awesome. Thank you so much, Anne. That was a really great presentation. And yeah, it looks like we do have a few questions. Just a reminder for anyone out there, if you have some questions, feel free to submit them to the Q&A now. And we will be able to follow up with you if we don't have time to get to them today. All right. I'm just going to start at the top and we can talk through them out loud. How's that sound? Okay, so first off from Andy, do the products have a range of slope that they need to fall within to function as a roof finish? Thinking in specific of projects with complex roof pitches of varying slopes and connections, are the typical transition details or termination details tested and also customizable?
Yeah, so good question. The panel profile will usually dictate the slopes that it can be installed on. Some panels can go down as low as a 1/2 and 12 roof pitch. There's usually some caveats that you have to do as far as inseam sealant and a double lock or 180-degree seam in those conditions. Most of the snap blocks that we offer can go down to at least a 3. Some can go down as low as a 212. So panel profile is really going to dictate the amount of slope that you need for the panel or for the project. As far as installation details, we offer a variety of recommended installation details. I can't speak for everybody, but at Sheffield, we have what's called TAS 100 testing. It's a Florida Building Code, Florida Product Approval requirement. It tests simulated rainfall at 8.8 inches an hour of wind speeds up to 110 miles an hour. Those are the installation details that we use to pass that testing. You know, and then obviously we do a lot of things when it comes to best practices, because one of the things that we really promote is long-term metal roofing. So some of the details are tested in our standard recommended installation details that are required by the TS 100 testing. The other ones are just best practices that we have used, and we know are tried and true as far as if they're installed correctly.
All right, awesome. Next up, does the embodied energy factor come into play at all? Aluminum has some of the highest amounts of embodied energy of any material out there.
Okay, so I'm not gonna lie to you, I had to do some internet sleuthing while Ann was giving the presentation. So one of the things that I found, and this is, again, I'm not an expert in this, I'm just reading off information that I found, but this is from Recycling Today. As far as aluminum's life cycle advantages, it talks about the embodied energy. And I'll just read you a quick paragraph. It says, recycling aluminum requires up to 95% less primary energy than producing aluminum from bauxite. Within Europe, the primary energy required to produce primary aluminum ingots is 157 megajoules per kilogram. However, this figure is dependent on the efficiency of the energy mix for the smelting. In comparison, the primary energy required to produce recycled aluminum ingots is 7.85 megajoules per kilogram. This is based on a 50-50 aluminum mix of processed scrap and post-consumer scrap, such as recycled window frames. So I think when you are talking about harvesting the raw material, that number is going to be substantially higher, right? But when you look at aluminum metal roofing, all of our metal roofing, at least on the aluminum side, is the majority recycled content. I think the lowest that we offer is 78%. There are some companies we deal with. I'm looking at one of our recycled lead letters right now. Their product mix consists of 39 to 45% post-consumer scrap and 40 to 45% pre-consumer scrap. So nearly 90% of the product is going to be from a recycled product. So I think that's one of the things to look at when you're comparing numbers is, you know, most metal roofing is going to have a minimum recycled content. Even in steel, the industry standard is a 25% minimum recycled content, which most companies are using closer to products that are 45 to 50% recycled just in steel. So I think when you're looking at the products, you have to take into consideration the recycled content versus, you know, raw materials coming from the ground.
Right, awesome. See, we've got a question from Greg. Any possibility of you posting the presentation on a website? So we do post recordings of the webinars on Acelab, and I'll send over a link to that page in the chat. So you can head back there. It usually takes us a few days to upload a recording. And there are no credits available for watching the recording, but in case you want to use it to, you know, reference some of the content that we talked about today. So just send that over in the chat. You can watch any of our past events over on that page. All right. Can someone point me towards corner details for their standing seam wall panels? I can't find the corners.
So on the standing seam panels, you're only going to find roof installation details. If you go to the SMI 1.0 FWP flush wall panel, that's where we're going to have wall panel installation details. They could be pretty much adapted for use on a majority of different panel options out there. You know, the other thing I'll say too is if you need to pull information off our website, you don't need to know a secret password or a special handshake to be able to access information. You don't have to register accounts or anything. We put all our information out there to make it as easy as possible for everybody to access.
All right, and I just sent over a link as a response to that. I'll send it in the chat as well, but here is a page where you can get to that product that Jeff was referencing on Acelab, and you can download all of those files on Acelab as well. All right, there was one question that I saw, Jeff, you had answered already, but I thought it might be good to talk about out loud because I think you had typed the answer during the presentation. So just in case this was something anyone else was wondering, what is the difference between engineered and non-engineered? Jeff, would you mind recapping that?
Absolutely. So engineered versus non-engineered. Engineered systems are going to have what we consider to be a full array of testing. Anything from uplift, water penetration, wind-driven rain, air infiltration, basically anything that you would commonly find in a commercial specification that's going to be a requirement. Again, they're usually on more commercially focused panels, although could be on some that are both residential and commercials, say like the 1.5" mechanical. Non-engineered systems doesn't mean that they don't have any engineering or testing associated with them. It just means that it doesn't have the full line of testing of what we would consider that you would need for a commercial spec. So, like I said, they all have usually some type of uplift testing. They all have hail testing. They all have fire testing. Some might have water penetration testing, things like that. But they're more focused towards the residential market, and a lot of times you won't see those requirements. But we'd like to offer testing on our residential panels as well, because, you know, just because it's not a commercial project doesn't mean that there shouldn't be a standard of how things should be installed. And there shouldn't be some type of requirement to know whether or not that roof system is right for your area.
All right, awesome. Cool. So it looks like I do see that somebody's hand is raised. So Dan, if you're with us, I'm going to unmute you really quick to see if you had a question that you'd like to ask out loud. Sometimes that's what's happening. Sometimes folks just raise their hand by accident. So I'll unmute you really quick so we can see. And if anyone does have a question that they would like to ask out loud, raising your hand is a great way to do that. Hey, Dan, if you're here with us, I just wasn't sure if you, had your hand raised and want to ask something. If not, feel free to let me know in the chat.
Looks like he's still on mute too.
Yeah, looks like he's still on mute. All right, I'm going to move you back to disable talking, but feel free to submit a question if you had one. All right, and it looks like there is one more question just about the AIA numbers. So yes, we did send a form in the chat for submitting your AIA number. We also asked for it upon registration, so most of you should have probably filled it out there, but in case you didn't, I'll send that form again in the chat really quick. All right, let's see. So I'm sending that form now. Please grab any of these links from the chat before we jump off today. And also, if you are not filling out the form for AIA right now, but you're grabbing it and filling it out for later, please just do that before the end of the day so that, you know, your AIA number gets included when we make those reports. All right. Awesome. Well, if there are no further questions, I'm just going to quickly mention that we do have a post-event survey. So if there's anything that comes up after you leave today's webinar, that survey will automatically pop up on your screen. Super helpful for us if you can fill that out, leave any additional comments or any questions that you might have. And also feel free to grab any of those links to Acelab. You can get in touch with Sheffield's team directly by just clicking that contact button like Helen showed us at the top. All right. Looks like we are just about at time. So I just want to thank everyone so much for attending today and for all of the great questions and participation. And thank you so much, Anne and Jeff, for joining us and for giving such a great presentation.
Thank you, Bo. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye now.
Bye.